title is about Switzerland. Switzerland, a nation that explores neutrality, is a prosperous and modern market economy with low unemployment and unsubstantially skilled labor force and a per capita GDP among the highest in the world. There is some major growth driver of Switzerland. First, watch. Swiss company produced a largest portion of the world high-end watch in 2011 year. Export reached nearly 19.3 billion CHF, up 19.2% over the previous years. Second, industrial sector. Switzerland has one of the most competitive pharmaceutical industries in the world. Major Swiss pharmaceutical companies include Novartis and Roche. Third, agriculture. Switzerland is subsidizing more than 70% of its agricultural contract to 35% in the EU. The 2000 GF 63 million to CHF 14.092 billion. Fourth, trade. The United Nations Community Trade Statistics Database have lower number for Switzerland export and import. 5. Tourism. Switzerland have higher involved the travel industrial framework, particularly in the rural, local, and urban community, making it a good market for the travel industry-related equipment and service. 6. Banking and financial. In 2003 years, the financial sector involved an estimated 11.6% of Switzerland's GDP and employed approximately 196,000 people.
Good day everyone, my name is Muhammad Hafiz and I would like to present introduction part regarding Switzerland. For review of industrial relation system of Switzerland, Switzerland's system of industrial relation was for a long time synonymous for stability. At 1950, Swiss trade union developed their position as subordinate partner and cooperative and consensual industrial relation. And in the 1990s, a decade in which labor union faced three major challenges, which are exceptionally long recession of the early 1990s, next is the progressive turn of business organization, and lastly, trade union were treated by the eventual opening of the Swiss labor market to the European Union. In parallel, targeting up to new almost union, free private companies, and more frequently resort to labor dispute. Next is review of employment law in Switzerland. Employment law in Switzerland is regulated at the federal level. The most important private legislation in the Swiss Code of Obligation, which govern inter alia, individual work, contract and collective labor agreement. The main public employment law statute is the Swiss Federal Act of Employment in Trade and Industry and its implementing ordinance. There are three main statutes for resolving employment, which are the Swiss Code of Civil Procedure, the Revised Convention on Jurisdiction, and the Regulation and Enforcement of Judgment in Civil and Commercial Matters, and lastly, the Swiss Federal Act on Private International Law. Next is trade union in Switzerland. There are two trade union federations, which are the Swiss Federation of Trade Union and the second one is the Travail Suisse. Both federations are governed by two unions created by the unification of the various manufacturing, service and construction trade union. There are still traces in Switzerland of the division of the trade union movement into socio-economic classes. Next is collective bargaining in Switzerland. Collective agreement may be considered legally binding by the federal government. The legal basis for the collective labor law can be found in the Swiss Code of Obligation. There is no national statutory minimum wage. The Swiss Federation of the Trade Unions obtained 112,000 signatures for a people's initiative to introduce a national minimum wage.
Industrial relations system of Switzerland, Switzerland government and society. First, constitutional framework. One of the unique aspects of Switzerland constitution is the quantity of decisions it requires citizens to make through referendum and initiative. Second, cantonal and local government. The Swiss Confederation is divided into 26 cantons, including 6 demi-cantons or half-cantons, which function as full canton, each of which has its own constitution and assembly. Third, justice. The Swiss Civil Code of 1912 years have outfit a model for the organization of justice in numerous countries. Indeed, portions of the code have been embraced verbatim in other legitimate frameworks. Moreover, political process. Switzerland government has shaped by a grand coalition of 4 parties: the Radical Democratic Party, the Social Democratic Party, the Christian Democratic People Party, and the Swiss People Party. Furthermore, security. In accordance with Switzerland neutrality, which dates from 1670 and in 1815 became universal law, the necessary to preserve the country's independence. Apply for their health and welfare. Public welfare services in Switzerland have advanced in a way typical of federalism, developing first in the communes, then in the cantons, and later in the confederation. Social welfare support is primarily a communal task, sometimes in cooperation with the cantons.
Hi there, Nisha here. So now I will be presenting on Switzerland policy based on domestic worker and also foreign worker. Basically, in Switzerland, the standard employment law and regulation are governed by the Code of Obligation and also Labor Act. In Switzerland, they also added some other legislation, which is Participation Act, Gender Equality Act, Data Protection Act, Merger Act, Ordinance Against Excessive Compensation Act. Tribute Commission of the Confederation, TPC, has suggested that the government to implement SEC, Standard Employment Contract. This is because in Switzerland, there has a little bit problem in identifying the domestic workers' minimum wages. So, after having the SECs, Switzerland has classified domestic worker in 3 levels, which is unskilled, unskilled with experience, and also skilled domestic workers. Now we will be looking at the foreign worker. As for the foreign worker in Switzerland, they are mostly from European Union, the EUs, and some of it are from the non-European Unions. The EUs really enjoys working in Switzerland because their regulation is not as strict as the non-EUs, as the EUs are able to work in Switzerland for 3 months without having any visas. And EUs also are able to apply for self-employed in Switzerland. Regardless, they need to fulfill some perspective of the Switzerland economic. Only then they will allow these EU's foreign workers to be self-employed in Switzerland. On the other hand, for the non-EUs in Switzerland, they are more strict than the EUs. As for the non-EU's foreign worker, Switzerland's only allow those foreign workers that has a high qualification, have been a manager, specialist, or other professional skills that they can provide in Switzerland. The non-EUs need to have a letter, a confirmation letter from the company in Switzerland saying that they are accepted to work in Switzerland as proof. Only then Switzerland will allow the foreign worker from non-EUs to work in Switzerland and provide them with visas and IDs. So next, I will be presenting on the sectors of economic in Switzerland. So in Switzerland, there are 8.6 million population in Switzerland. They are relatively small country, and somehow the economy has distributed certain sectors. So the first sector is agriculture sector, which has contributed as much as 4%. And the second sector is industry sector, which has contributed 23% for the economy. And the most contribution has been made by the service industry in Switzerland. So Switzerland has been putting their country name on their own product. And the most high-end luxury product that has been produced by Switzerland is that Swiss watch. Next, Switzerland also puts their country name on their famous cheese, all known as an Emmental cheese. Lastly, the industrial sectors that has almost covered the whole Switzerland is where Switzerland focusing on pharmaceutical industry. Now I will talk about the government agency on domestic workers. So in this case, the domestic workers are covered under Labor Code. In Article 1, Section A of the National Collective Agreements of Employee has stated that every individual employer that has considered any person that is working or doing any household job, whether it is part-time or full-time, is need to be considered as their employee. Switzerland also undertake two other important sections, which is in section 328A1 of the Civil Code and also the section 17 of the Standard Labor Contract, in which this contract has stated that every individual or domestic workers need to be provided with food and also be in a healthy condition, and making sure these domestic workers are sufficient. Also, in section 17 has stated that every domestic workers need to be provided with a room that have sunlight and a room that is full with furniture and necessary things. Also, the room needs to be locked, making sure that the domestic workers feel like it's their own room. That's about it. Next, I will pass to the next presenter.
Hi, my name is Erna Elena Binti with a metric number of 64232, and I'll be present about employment of women in Switzerland. So number 1, women and night work in Switzerland are generally well protected for both genders. In this case of female workers who expectant mothers or having recently given birth until the end of the 16th week of following childbirth are prohibited from night work. Number 2, women and underground work. In Switzerland, they are allowed to choose their own occupation, free access to an economic activity, and freedom of association for all employees, including female workers. So number 3, maternity protection. In Switzerland, female workers is generally entitled to take at least 14 weeks, which is equivalent to 98 days of full statutory requirement, which the state pays them a compensation of 80% their average last salary during maternity leave for following the childbirth. And the compensation is currently covered at CHF 196 per day, which equivalent to 881.41 ringgit Malaysia. Plus, the employee cannot terminate the female worker during the maternity leave. While public holidays in Switzerland are in addition to the minimum holidays entitled, which is 4 weeks per day, that includes Swiss National Day, cantonal public holidays, and local holidays. Public holidays in Canton are as follows. The days that Switzerland celebrates are in Canton mentioned. There are usually restrictions for those days, which all business will be closed at noon or closed for the entire day. As for their annual leave, in Switzerland, employees have the right to have holiday leave, which the minimum amount required by law are 4 weeks for workers and apprentices over 20 years old and 5 weeks for workers and apprentices up to 20 years old. The minimum length of holiday shall be extended through the agreement of contract. Annual leave can be taken during the corresponding year of service and must carrying at least 2 consecutive weeks. Employee must pay a full salary during holidays as long as the employment relationship continues. On the other hand, holiday cannot be replaced by payment or other benefit. As you know, absent rates because of illness are very low in Switzerland. Sick leave entitled is depending on the number of years in a service, and worker must be continuously work for at least 3 months to qualify those payment. Also, most companies have an insurance policies in Switzerland. Sick leave insurance also coverage for 730 days in total out of 900 consecutive days. For the first year of service, employers needs to pay between 1 and 3 weeks sick pay depending on the canton and the scale applied. However, illness and injury are to be considered as self-inflicted, which unlikely to be paid for sick leave. Termination benefits in Switzerland does not provide for special rules on the protection of certain workers against dismissal. It is directly deal with the collective bargaining agreement between workers' unions and companies. Termination benefits in Swiss are guaranteed to be paid by the employers. Lastly, employment of foreigner in Switzerland. There is different condition must be applied for citizens who are from a country in the European Union or European Free Trade Association countries that includes Iceland, Liechtenstein, and Norway. So, national of Europe countries do not require a visa. Meanwhile, a list of third countries must have a visa to enter Switzerland. For those
Okay, so for my part, I will present 4 parts, which first part is about the minimum retirement age and some act. Second part will be the policy and act related to children and young labor. Third part will be social security laws, and last will be the future employment scenarios in Switzerland. For the first part, which is minimum retirement age and some act that is related with, the minimum retirement age in Switzerland is 65 for men and 64 for women, and can be anticipated or postponed, with anticipation leading to decreased annuity and postponement to increased annuity. In Switzerland, every resident are compulsory to pay the contribution, which something like the KWSP. So, if they reach the retirement age, they can get the benefit from the retirement plan. In Switzerland, there are 3 types of retirement plan, which so-called 3-pillar system. The first pillar, known as state pension plan. Second pillar, occupational pension scheme, and the third pillar, private pension scheme. Different pillars have different scheme policy, also the benefit received will be different. Second part, which is policy and act related to children and young labor. Children and young labor referring to the employment of children in any work that deprive children of their childhood, interfere with their ability to attend regular school, and that is mentally, physically, socially, and morally dangerous and harmful. Through investigation, a historian found out that this issue was very serious during 1930s and until now. Fortunately, the child labor cases is on the decline trend after Switzerland joined the international program on elimination of child labor. As for now, the official child labor policy stated that young people may not be employed before turning at least 15 years of age. However, there are some exceptions to this principle. Accordingly, young people under 15 years of age may work at cultural, artistic, or sporting events and in advertising. They may also perform light work if they are over 13 years of age. In those cantons where compulsory schooling is complete before the age of 15, other exceptions from this rule may be authorized under certain conditions for young people of 14 years and over. Next, I will present about the social security laws in Switzerland. Social security can be referred as the series of benefits you can get as long as you have paid the contribution. To receive for the full benefit, an individual and their employer must have made uninterrupted payment from the age of 20 until the retirement age, which is 65 for men and 64 for women. The example of social security in Switzerland are 3-pillar system: unemployment insurance, healthcare insurance, income compensation allowance, family allowance, and bilateral agreement between European Union (EU). For the last part, which is the future employment scenario in Switzerland, with 8.5 million of population, Switzerland is a relatively small country but a stable economy, high salary, low unemployment rate, and a lot of multinational companies. It became a location which a lot of people dream to work at. However, this might be changed. According to an article from McKinsey Global Institute by Daniel, digital technology, automation, and AI can boost Switzerland's productivity by around 1% a year in the period to 2030. However, to capture the productivity bonus, the company needs to undertake bold and comprehensive digital transformation, and also a large part of workforce may be replaced by the technology. He also stated that job displacement is a regular feature of modern labor market, but the pace of change could be double. This will lead to a high unemployment rate, but it will help on double the productivity. To put it into a nutshell, there is major uncertainty about the employment scenarios in Switzerland. Who knows? Maybe with the rise of technology level, it may create even more job opportunities.
Conclusion. There is some similarity and reference between Malaysia and Switzerland. Similarity. Switzerland and Malaysia have maintained diplomatic relations since 1963 years. A good business environment and easy access to the Asia-Pacific market and its 630 million consumers made Malaysia a preference for Swiss organizations. Malaysia is Switzerland's fourth most important partner among the Asian member states after Singapore, Thailand, and Indonesia. Researchers and artists from Malaysia can apply for Swiss government excellence scholarship to the state secondary for education, research, and innovation. Difference. Malaysian constitution ensures the right of all Malaysians to freely enjoy a trade union. There were several restrictions forced by the law relating to trade unions. For example, the Trade Union Act of 1959 years and the Industrial Relations Act of 1967 years. While Switzerland has two trade union federations, that is Swiss Federation of Trade Unions, SGB with 16 associations, and Charter Swiss with 12 associations. However, the expansion in the minimum monthly wage under the 2020 years order to Rm 1,200 per month in major cities in Malaysia was reported during the 2020 year Malaysian budget. While Switzerland has no official minimum wage, a majority of the volunteer collective bargaining agreement contain understanding on minimum compensation, ranging from 2,200 to 4,200 francs per month for unskilled workers and from 2,800 to 5,300 francs per month for skilled employees. That's all for me. Thank you.